Well, good morning. So, Chief Storyteller. The reason I said that is because I've got a job title, but like most big corporations, it's a job title that doesn't really bear much resemblance to what I actually do. Because most of the time, I spend my time telling stories, whether that's using digital things like websites and blogs, or in individual conversations with schools, colleges, universities, people within the influencing sphere of education, or whether it's events like this. So what I want to do is to talk to you about the future. And what I'm going to do is use the context of the world of work in 10 years' time and how technology may influence that, and then step back and look at some of the detail behind that story. So I'm going to use my first 5 minutes to show you a video, which seems a bit of a strange choice, but in those 5 minutes we can get a real insight into what we think the future of the workplace is going to look like. And the video I'm going to show you shows a vision for workplace in the next 10 years. It's based on work not just by product planners and developers, but by social anthropologists and psychologists that we have working for us, whose job it is to predict where the future is. Because, of course, the products we're using today, the teams that develop those, start to work on a 5 or 6 year time frame. So they're now developing products that we might see in 5 or 6 years' time. So they've got to have that true insight into what the future is going to look like. And the way they do it is they create scenarios. So as you watch this video, think about how realistic some of these things are and whether you believe that some of the things you're going to see actually are going to come and happen in the way they're presented in the video or not. The warning I would give you is that predictions of the future are pretty much always wrong. If you think about the last big project you did and you described how much you were going to achieve in 12 months, you'd probably agree that we tend to over-anticipate what we can achieve in 12 months. But most visions of the future tend to under-anticipate what we can achieve in a decade. So take a look at this, and then we'll look at some of the technology and the changes that are behind it. something about the pace of technology change. That video was made about 14 months ago, and already some of the things that we see in that video are here and now, aren't they? We can see them and touch them and use them and feel them ourselves. So if that's our vision of where the workplace is going to be in 10 years' time, what's the story behind that, and why is it so important that we think about that at the moment? Well, I guess if we break the video down into separate parts and look at each of the different ways that people are going to be working with each other, they're going to be exchanging information, there are some clear trends that come out of that. For example, the assumption throughout the video is that people are connected all of the time, that everybody knows where everybody is, everyone knows where everybody else is, that all of that information just flows around. So that's a different model, perhaps, than some of the models that we have today, where I think we have to assume that we need to make what we have in our hand and in our pocket and connected to other things work smoothly and integrate with what's on our desktop, what's up in the cloud, all of the different services. But also some of the technology that's there to help us manage some of the processes. So, for example, in this part of the video, we saw students having a real-time video conversation. Well, that's possible now. Video walls are possible. There's real-time translation going on. Well, okay, in the video, it was in speech, but actually the technology to do it exists already today. There are many websites you can go to where there's a button that you can press to translate it into one of 18 different languages. So we're starting to remove some of the barriers of communication between people and some of the barriers of communication between us and technology. We saw a lot of examples in the video of different interfaces. I'll just spend a second clicking on this. So this is some of the work that's going on in the research labs at the moment about user interfaces. I'm guessing that the person that was working on this project for 15 years probably got a little bit of a surprise when the Wii was launched and he saw the technology in consumers' hands straight away. But there's plenty of other things going on. Speech technology is advancing all of the time. I can currently phone my inbox and ask it to reschedule meetings, ask it to send messages to people using voice technology. It's amazing. 10 years to get us to flat screens, and suddenly the first thing I see after that is round screens. We need things with curved edges on it. But what it does is it changes the way that people interface to technology. If you've ever seen people using this technology or things like a Surface, what it does is it draws people together to collaborate rather than the screens separating people apart from each other. And then there's new interfaces. This looks to me like a fluffy mouse, but it isn't. It's designed as a three-dimensional interface, I'm guessing, to go with our three-dimensional TVs. So there's a lot of work going on in different ways of interfacing and different ways of creating and using information. So in the future, we see that the way that people create information, the way that they change information, and organize and, most importantly, share information is going to change. Now, in the video, we also saw the woman on the airplane linking back to what was going on with her children in their school. We saw a number of different things. We saw, on this part, we saw something that looked a bit like a virtual learning environment or an MLE that we have today, perhaps a little bit, visually a little bit different, but the technology was based on the same. If I go down here, this is something that kind of brings together three different eras. At the back is a screenshot from the video. At the top is a typical managed learning environment in use today. At the bottom is one that we created for work within building schools for the future around how could you bring consumer technology into the learning experience? So how could you integrate that all together? So what we did was integrate e-portfolios, e-textbooks, e-readers with things like instant messenger and video conferencing into an environment that used some of the gaming technologies to change the way that information is displayed. We also saw some neat tricks in the technology. The boarding card that changed into many different things. I'll show you this example is a digital wallet, which is both exciting and scary. Exciting because if you've got a wallet bulging with credit cards, loyalty cards, putting it all on one card is a nice idea. Scary if you lose that one card, you're lost, aren't you? But things like that, we think, are going to make a big change to the way that we use information and the access that we have to information in different places. We also saw on the boarding card she was using it as a device. This was something filmed in the research labs about 18 months ago. It's a wafer-thin device with a full-color display on it and touch sensitivity. The interesting thing I thought as soon as I saw this was, that's interesting, touch is on the back, not on the front, so you can actually see what it is you're trying to touch, rather than covering it up with your finger. So there's a lot of different things going on in terms of interfaces. And then there's a lot of changes around the way that people are are working together. This example that we saw in the video, I think most closely relates to some of the portals, things like SharePoint that universities are using today to change workflow within the institution. But what I like about this is it visualizes information, allows you to see it flowing between buildings, rather than the experience that we have today, which is that information is, you send an email, you've got no idea where it's gone. It'd be fantastic for me, because people would see that it arrives with me, it's the bottom of a 1,000 unread email inbox, and perhaps they'd think again about sending me another email. Sorry, Tim. And we also saw integration with some, again, technologies that already exist today, but bringing them together in different ways. We saw this example in the video, the man going through the airport. I don't know if anybody noticed in the video, if you watch it again, he's walking straight towards a bollard looking at his screen. I guess the outtake was the 30 seconds after that. But the idea of being able to walk around somewhere and use technology to start to give you more information about what's going on. So I know you're having a session later about augmented reality, so I'm not going to touch on any of that. But just think, Pico projectors already exist. Nikon have put a Pico projector into a camera. I'm not quite sure why you put a Pico projector into a camera. It's take a picture, turn around and show people the picture you've just taken. Doesn't seem to make sense to me. But kind of integrate all of those things together, Pico projectors, GPS devices, mobile technology, perhaps saving us some of the trouble of all the things that we have to carry around. I've seen this go from a conceptual drawing 18 months ago into a conceptual product now, where the idea is you just carry a small device around and you use whatever is handy as an interface. You use whatever is handy as a screen, rather than to have to carry all of those things around with you all of the time. And there's quite a nice power-saving idea there, because most of the energy that's used goes into this turning on the devices that we have to carry around with us. So the way that we get hold of information and it flows around is going to change. We also saw in this section of the video some of the scenarios of the future of the way that people are going to meet in this video, and I'm guessing those things have a direct relevance to the way that people are going to learn. If any of you have been with Richard, my colleague, over to an executive briefing over in Seattle, you can actually see some of these things in reality rather than on a video or on a CGI screen, and actually see the way that we see some of this technology going forward. But let me show you, for Bernard, wherever you are, you might need to turn the sound down again now. Let me show you a video of something that's coming out in consumer technology. You may have seen this already. It's called Kinect. Perfect. So this is a device created for gaming. The idea is that instead of having to interface using a device, actually use your body as the interface. Now, in this case, it's gaming. We've changed the way that people interact with technology, so cameras can see you, they work out where all your joints are, they can work out where your fingers are, so suddenly you can control with your body instead. Of course, we haven't killed stereotypes. Dad's still the one that has to change the tyres, although I notice he has let his daughter drive, which is quite unusual. It's interesting for gaming, but as soon as you see bits of technology like this, your mind starts to think about other uses for it. So in this case, this is designed as a shopping experience, but imagine if this was applied as a learning experience, bringing learners together across physical spaces, augmenting the reality of where they are with information. So in this case, you can see one girl going through the shopping, her friend selecting the dress for her, and then it overlaying the virtual dress with the real person. And we've started to see there's a project under development that you may see bits of over the next few months called Milo, which is about a completely new way of gaming between a child and a virtual child. And when I saw that, again, my reaction went straight away to, well, how's that going to change the way that we might be able to supplement learning both inside and outside of the institution? In the world of business, we talk about meetings changing, which I think most people would agree we really do need meetings to change, but becoming more dynamic, but also requiring less people to move around to be where the meeting is and instead bring the meeting to them. In this section, there were a lot of examples of technology. I'm not going to dive into any of these, but I guess the bit that I took away from looking at that part of the video was technology was starting to help us to deal with the constant flow of information that we're all seeing. That what it's trying to do is connect bits of information together in a relevant way. But this section at the end of the video was the bit that I thought was the real point about it, and especially when it comes to thinking about education in the future. in this part of the video, we saw a man working from home in a way that it was indivisible, his working life and his social life and his home life. A bit like many of you that are on Twitter. In the evening when you're on Twitter, are you working or are you socializing? During the day, the line is beginning to be blurred. And the skills that are required in the workplace of the future to cope with this kind of environment, the collaboration skills, the communication skills, the decision-making skills, the project management skills, in my case, the prioritizing skills, are very different from the skills that perhaps we're testing in the current educational system. And the challenge is, how do we prepare students of today for this future? If this is what the world of the workplace is going to look like in 10 years' time, based on all of the work by the sociologists at the moment, then how is it that we're going to support them for working in that environment? And I guess when I think about learning and technology and the future of those two things, to me it's about how we bring those two things together in order to ensure that the learners of today have got the skills that they need for a world which seems to have ubiquitous technology around it. So this original presentation talked about reimagining the world of business. Actually, I think it is directly relevant also to reimagining the world of education, about the processes, the purposes, and the ways that we assess in the future. Thank you very much.